So today the whole program is gonna be surrounded around Roma culture, around self-representation, as well as we're gonna end the night, we're gonna end the day with a concert by Jimmy Band from 9:30, and also some socializing, networking, and drinks in the hall. So the panel discussion today is gonna tackle the topic of self-representation in arts and culture. For decades, the Roma communities have been represented through different perspectives, different narratives, and through media, cinema, academia, politics, but not always these representations have been realistic to the actual situation and conditions of Roma communities throughout Europe. They have many times shaped wrong understanding. They have shaped maybe stereotypes. They have shaped exclusion, and they have created narratives that not always have reflected the diversity and complexity of Roma lives. However, today we're witnessing quite an important shift. Across Europe, we have Roma filmmakers, artists, cultural institutions, and digital initiatives that are increasingly taking ownership of Roma narratives, Roma stories, and self-representation nowadays have become it's not only about visibility, but it's also about authorship, about taking agency of the narratives, of the stories, and taking ownership also of the right to define one's identity on one's own terms. Quite a good example is also a platform such as Rolling Film Festival. So one of the main objectives and missions also of the festival is exactly this. So films about Roma, but also from Roma. So the idea is to give the ownership back to Roma creators, Roma creatives, and filmmakers and artists. Today with us, this conversation brings together three individuals who, through their exceptional work, through their different approaches in film, in parts of cultural institutions, festivals, as well as digital communities, they're actively contributing to this transition. I have the honor to present Petro Rusanienko. Petro is a Ukrainian filmmaker, Ukrainian-Romani filmmaker, actor, cultural curator based in Berlin. He's a community coordinator at the European Roma Institute for Arts and Culture, as well as is a board member of European Film Academy. His work focuses on strengthening Roma arts, supporting emerging Roma artists, as well as building international collaborations across Europe. So we're very happy to have him here present. With us, we also have Driton Berisha. Driton Berisha is a cultural worker, I would say. He represents today Amaro, which is an innovative Roma-led digital platform dedicated to creating spaces for connection, creativity, and cultural pride for Roma communities worldwide. So through Driton today, we're going to be understanding a lot more for this representation, but in terms more of a digital aspect to it, a digital transformation to a digital sphere where art and culture are actually entering nowadays. So it's quite an important aspect also to discuss a little bit more about this, because we're living in a time that we have digital transformation is more present than ever. So it's also important for us to understand how we can use different digital platforms to also convene ideas, convene art, culture, film, socializing, etc., etc. So, Sami Mustafa, I'm sure most of you know him. Sami Mustafa is the artistic director of Rolling Film Festival. So today he's here also part of the panel to tell us more about what it means to have a platform such as a film festival to actually promote, push forward Roma culture and art, and give opportunities to Roma people to be included, to produce, to just tell their stories also through the festival. I have to specify that Lisa Smith, who was supposed to be part of the panels, she couldn't make it today. So we're not going to have the Critical Film and Image Hub present, but anyways, the discussion is not going to be deeply affected by it. So we've tackled a little bit the topic of representation, self-representation also in the discussion we had yesterday. But when we say self-representation, what are we truly talking about? Is it simply giving space to present Roma arts, to present Roma culture and Roma people on screen and as part of institutions? Or does it mean something deeper to you? Like, how do you perceive self-representation through your line of work? Maybe a question to all of you, but yeah, maybe we can go one by one.
So for me personally, it's very much linked to I can do things and I want to do them. It's all right? Yeah. I want to do them, and it doesn't mean that I can only do the handy stuff. I can do much more than handy, and I can do the creative stuff, and I can do the you know, all sorts of things. And it's not something that I'm being told from the majority of the community or from my neighbors or whatever, what to do or how to do. And it's the way I do it is going to be written and it's going to be presented, it's going to be projected to the future and to the newer generations to come, presented by us and for us. I grew up in the world where, you know, the Roma has been presented by everyone else. The films were made by everybody else but us. The articles were written by everybody else but us. The news were made everybody else but us. And everything was made from the perspective of everybody else but us. And the importance of self-representation in this case is that we need to tell our own story and we need to tell our own struggle so we can actually really understand and also connect deeper with the community.
What I have to say to the self-representation is I would choose exactly what you chose, Sami. But I'll take now maybe another perspective from a safe space. How much of a safe space is given actually to self-representation? And how much are we listening to? Well, when you talk about self-representation, how self-confident do we feel to represent who we are and not be judged? With Amaro Tan, social media, we aim at creating this safe space so that Roma can enjoy being who they are without being judged. And perhaps maybe later I can tell you the whole background story of how it started, and it had to do with being able to dare to actually self-represent yourself.
All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming today. I totally agree with everything that you just said. I will just add a few things from my perspective, my experience point of view. It started a bit deeply for me of the self-representation question. First, for me, it was identify who I am. Actually, it's to start to speak up that I'm Roma publicly in my work, simply in my Instagram. It's like, so yeah, it started with just finding this confidence that I'm not ashamed anymore about my identity, that I actually proud. And talking from the institutional perspective, we have a dedicated pillar in institution which called particularly pride and identity, which about the self-representation basically.
So ERIAC was created to strengthen Roma arts, culture, create opportunities, give out opportunities for collaborations, for development, for creating new projects in arts and culture. and there is an increase in visibility of Roma culture in European institutions. But from your own perspective, Pedro, do you think visibility is enough, or is there something on a European level that needs to change structurally for this topic to move forward?
Look, short answer gonna be, of course, not enough, but it's a good start, still. I mean, there is a lot of changes happen. I totally agree that I also grew up in the world when everything about Roma were made by non-Roma about Roma, which was quite weird because portrayed it mostly wrongly. But I mean, ERIAC mission is quite clear. It's to give the space for the Roma people publicly, increase the visibility, and I think that the work that was done by ERIAC for the past 9 years is quite good, if you ask me about the score. Practically, there is a space now for Roma. Like, look, we are on the film festival, right? Roma Film Festival, organized by Roma, made with the Roma films. This is amazing achievement. Like 10 years ago, I probably wouldn't imagine that yet. We are going to Cannes Film Festival or Berlinale Film Festival, the most famous festivals in the Europe, and there is a Roma stand there. So I would say, yeah, the work was done well, but of course it's not enough. It needs to be structural changes, but let's say on the governmental level as well. So yeah.
I have a follow-up question for Petro. You being part of inside an institution, and how long have you been with ERIAC, and have you noticed maybe an increase in cultural production from Roma filmmakers, artists, and so on in the last years? Or is it the same situation? Or do you see that there's a development on this regard in terms of production and cultural consumption as well? From filmmakers generally, yeah, but I'm asking from your perspective as part of an institution that also has a library of films and stuff, like, do you notice that there's more production of, is there more production in terms of films by Roma artists in the last years?
I mean, I have a little bit of the thing for films, so. And because I have this little bit of the thing for films, I do some things for fun. And one of the things for fun I do is that I try to mark the types of films and the number of films made since the very beginning of the film production. And but at the same time, I also watch the films because I want to program them and I want to see them. So I try to get to watch all the films possible. And to answer your question, if you look at the films from the very beginning, the Chaplin films until the 90s, this is very few films that were made about Roma. Lots of them very stereotypical. And this is where the core narrative of Roma is actually being born. The films from Kusturica, the films from the Ukrainian film, from the gypsies fly on the sky. Or even the Chaplin films, and some of the, and so you have the number of films there that it's you can count them around hundreds of those or less, or films that are depicting Roma themes. So I'll try to make it shorter. So and so basically we have 100 films in this kind of era of the film industry, and then from 90s or 2000, then you have a new era, and the new era which is more like a digital one, and more computers are more accessible to everyone, camera is more accessible to everyone, and there you have a huge number of films that are being produced and made.
Just a few points that I totally agree. The number of the Roma filmmakers is quite small, but I had several cases in my experience when I met people and then saying that I'm Roma, they were like, oh, actually, my father also was, also Roma, or my grandma. So I just want to say that there is a big number of people that we don't know that they are Roma just because they are never saying that. So, and that's kind of connected to the first question of the self-identity and representation, that we really need to work on the Roma pride, just to be proud about your nationality. It's not, doesn't mean that you need to go on the square with the Roma flag and stand there for an hours, but it means that you should, just not to be shy to say about your identity, not only when there is someone who already said that and you feel the space more safe, and then you speak up. Just be this broken rules, I don't know, person, how to frame that.
If I may just add, although I'm not a filmmaker, I have been part of every single rolling, as I said, and I would like not to minimize the work of the non-Roma people who work and make films about Roma people. And I think there is a lot of beauty there. What I do see it wrong, and I have had personal experience, is having a whole crew of people spending enormous budget to discuss something that you think you know about Roma, without a Roma as a co-director or as a script checker, at least, about what you're going to do. So I've had a case like that where I was like, please don't do that, don't destroy us. Let me at least be a friend here while the script is being written, let me check it out. If you're going to talk, for example, about early marriages, this is not something that happens at least here. So you need Roma activists, you need to check it with the people that you're working about and work it with. But the same thing applies also with project management. When it comes to working on education or any other project. Again, I don't minimize the work of a non-Roma because we should all work together, and there are many non-Roma who contributed and did more than Roma themselves did in a lot of cases. But I think it's crucial to avoid situations that unfortunately happen very often, and those are that you have a project manager or director of the film, and then you just have the Roma actors or just the Roma field workers who have to earn money and go by rules.
Absolutely, I agree completely with the point you made, Driton, especially, I mean, it's a growing approach and perspective to any kind of project design, actually, be that working with education with kids, be that working with sensitive groups, be that working with sensitive age groups. A positive approach, at least for quality programs, is that they're doing it bottom up, so not top down, how it used to be till now, because clearly the results show that that's really it's not effective. Anything you want to do from top down, it's not purely effective if you never include the communities in the design of the project. So not just in the implementation part, or as you said, like as actors or as just figures in a screen, but rather as deeply contributing to the development of any project. So I completely agree with you, and there's a growing, at least, approach when it comes to education and culture in the last years when it comes to this. Traditionally, any discussion in terms of representation has been focused mainly film, television, media, but today digital spaces have become equally important. So I would like to stop a little bit at Amaro as a platform. Can you tell us a bit more about it, and how does Amaro Tan contribute to Roma's self-representation in this digital age that we're living?
I think there's a lot I can say from beginning to where we are right now, but I'll try to concentrate on the concept of what we would like to achieve with Amaro Tan. And you have technology now bursting out and every day progressing more and more. We had ChatGPT, who was #1. Now we have Anthropic's Cloud, who's doing even better as AI. And there's more and more happening into robotics. We see the world is being shaped the way it functions with everything, and there's even fear there. However, Roma, as 12 million or more even people in Europe, should be taking place in this revolution, and should be taking place in this revolution by their own terms, by taking the freedom to be themselves. Now, when it comes to being themselves and the ability to connect to each other is another topic. One is how free they are, because this is how we got inspired. We organized a protest against police brutality, not only on behalf of that Roma who was beaten up in the police station, but on behalf of every single citizen in Kosovo. And more than 90% of all these TV stations that have followed that and published on their platforms was hate speech. So then this raises the question of being able to be yourself, which I said something at the beginning. And I definitely believe that Roma should be taking parts in the mainstream media, and it's very important that we are. As Petru said, I want to be a proud Roma in Instagram, on Facebook, and everywhere we are, and we will always push for that. However, we need Amaro Tan as a platform for 12 million Roma people for 3 things. And we have tools for that. One is to break the barriers of the borders between the Roma. Second one is to break the barriers of the languages. And third, to break the barriers of being organized, to be able to support each other, but to also enjoy the events that Roma can offer to each other. So I'm really hoping that with the new version, the new update that Amaro Tan is going to release very soon, we are responding to such problems, and that the next time Rolling Film Festival is going to get organized, that anyone in Europe will be able to identify it very easily without having to just join or be lucky to like the Facebook group, but be able to just search it and find it right there. And I may finish with this. It's very important, I believe also, that we are 12 million people in Europe as identifying as one nation, but we are so different. We have 60 dialects, over 60 dialects, grouped into 15 dialects. If a Roma doesn't meet a Roma in prison, he will not understand him unless he has experience, and then now they get used to it and they can still figure it out. And culture is not frozen museum. It's something that we continuously adapt, something that we continuously develop as well. And culture is so diverse even between Roma people, and we should be able to just travel across the country in today's time, be able to go to Hungary, from Hungary to Ukraine, from Ukraine to Poland, and just see how are the Roma living out there, what are they facing with, how are they thinking, what is their trend, and join the trend that I promised my kids I will do, 6-7 thing. That means nothing, of course, but it's so popular, you know, and we should be having such challenges and such games, and except having for the game, share also the problem and feel like you have been understood.
Sami, you founded Rolling Film Festival in 2009, and considering also that you're a filmmaker, film director yourself, and you have dedicated much of your career, if not all of your career, to Roma cinema. First of all, what pushed you to create a space such as Rolling Film Festival where Roma tell their stories? Like, what motivated you? What was the first push that you were like, we need to have a space, a platform for this, especially considering that Roma film festivals are not super common, are not so common, they're not so frequent. So what was it? What was it, the actual motivation and push for you to start in 2009, especially?
When, growing up in Clementina, and then started to come to Pristina right after the war, it was a huge challenge for me. It was a huge challenge for me to pass the barrier of fear that was created in the Serbian villages where I used to live, or the Serbian media, or the Serbian regime that we were all living in. And so, with me having this, being eager to come here, to spend time here, to go, against the odds that, that the change is possible, that, but we know it's not, I just didn't want to get stuck in Plemetina. And this is one of the reasons I also start making films, apart from the self-representation, because, when I wanted to learn who the Roma are, where we're coming from, there was absolutely nothing I can get to learn about that. So I did strongly believe in harmony and living in peace. And one of the ways I thought, and I believe, and I still believe that is to actually mix the people together, bring the people together in one room, and and just talk about stories and talk about situations and talk about films, basically. And this is something that's kind of, and I was going to the festivals myself, and then when I come back, from festivals from outside of Kosovo, and I thought, like, okay, well, we have to make a festival here, and we have to bring everybody together and just make them watch movies. So yeah, it was basically the belief for a better future and belief of living together in one place, in one country.
As I mentioned at the beginning, today we're presenting a film program, Amaro, which is co-curated with ERIAC. Amaro brings Roma films from across Europe to new audiences and to a new public. Have you noticed, Petro, what kind of stories do you think are emerging nowadays, let's say from films about Roma before? Do you see that the topics of the films are changing maybe with the new generation? Is it still struggle? So the concept and themes, do you see that they're perhaps changing in the last years, or is it kind of a similar tendency on films nowadays still?
Those films that are going to be shown, it's different from my examples that I am going to say. Obviously that there is so many topics are open now. Let me bring like a few just samples of talking about the Roma slavery in Romania, that were probably would never imagine anybody seeing something like that, or LGBTQ plus topic in the Roma context, which also would be just impossible to imagine. So it's changing a lot. I believe that it's developing with the world, like the world starting to be more open to many things, and Roma communities. I would say that we are still late with that, but we do progress, definitely.
Triton, as you said earlier, so while social media can do a lot about visibility, can do a lot about inclusion, can do a lot about promotion, cultural promotion, you also mentioned that there's a lot of hate speech and a lot of maybe stereotypical content. how did you think about Amaro when it comes to Amaro Tan? Like, did you think about how to create a safe space for that? And how do you create a safe space where Roma youth can express freely without that fear of being judged, without the hate speech, without the constant content against you and stuff? So how did you treat this issue?
Well, the fact that the rolling is happening is an opportunity for us to discuss who we are and be open about it, discuss it outside the door. And with Amaro Tan, it's creating such safe space that after you receive one hate comment, you don't stop. And let alone if you have 90% of comments. If you have mainstream social media, Facebook, Instagram, where you're seeing, oh, they deserved it, they should be worse, it should be like this, they should be like that, and you stop. What do you do in this case? You don't react. Amaro Tan, thanks to our genius, Ardit Berisha, who is a young 20 years old Roma, he's coded every single code of the app, and you don't see every day developers who can do this and lead the development of the app in both iOS and Android. He's doing a wonderful job, and he's created safety in terms of nudity, in terms of hate speech, and has given the option of reporting any sort of hate speech that we may see that even happens, unfortunately, between the Roma people. It's not that we all love each other all the time, every single time, in every single case. So we have moderators who, in case that it's not detected automatically by AI, that we are going to check it, and we are going to respond accordingly. Now, important to mention is that we are abiding by the GDPR regulations, EU GDPR regulations that envisage. We have actually all the messages taking place there are encrypted, and we actually said today with Elvis, we have to constantly keep saying that later, once we start with the marketing, that it is so safe that even Amaro Tan ourselves cannot go to it and check it and see it. And we are open to an outside audit to come and check that out. So it's a safe space where people can connect in their Chiriklo, we call it Messenger, but at the same time where they can feel themselves. And look, it's simple as that when you are sitting with people with similar backgrounds, you kind of understand each other. And it's just that now they can be more vocal, knowing that they have a bigger crowd who will support and understand them, and perhaps even travel. Like I took this example from the protesting that took place in Rusanienko. Maybe in that case, if we had Amaro Tan, we would have had the Roma coming from different places and saying, you cannot do this. We need to be able to support each other internationally as well, more. Not just with activists who are lucky like us, but people who are, 16, 17 years old, 20, 21 years old, who do different things, but just are justful.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in general, we've tackled different kind of perspectives, but what I'm hearing from all of them as active participants of either leading projects, developing projects, part of institutions, part of digital platform creators, in any type of such position, the one holds so much responsibility also at the same time. So Be that to create a safe space, be that to be inclusive, be that for safety, for proper cultural appropriation. So we hold responsibility in every different kind of aspect. But when it comes to filmmaking, and especially in terms of Roma filmmakers, like you personally, like you hold so much responsibility also at the same time. So while it's very positive that we hear the stories from Roma about Roma, there's this huge responsibility as well to represent your own culture, your own communities as best as possible. What, in terms of filmmaking, how do you maneuver between artistic freedom and this social responsibility to kind of perceive, to kind of reflect the best out of the topic you chose to represent from the movie?
I think it's very difficult. I mean, and the day when I figure that out, I'll let you know. But it's very difficult to actually really, to go out there to the community, depict what you want to make as a product, as an art piece, and to actually have impact on the rest of the society. And sometimes it doesn't work together. If it's too artistic, then it's just artistic piece. And if it's the activist part of the arts, then it's the activist. And so there is this kind of, or the political things, there's a lot of the political importance that plays in the whole thing. And sometimes some things just don't play together. What I like to do more, I mean, I've been doing until now, I was taking all the weight of the political and societal pressure on my shoulders and show, and educate about, certain situations of, in the society or the community. But in the other hand, it's also very important to really have, films that, with the Roma directors and actors and, or just actors or whatever, that we don't have to talk about Roma. We just, we carry the story, and that is the most important thing that we should see. Because if you're just talking about Roma and the Roma and the Roma and the Roma and the Roma, at some point you're just a human being and you just live through the life. And this is what most of the mainstream filmmaking industry doesn't understand about Roma, is that Roma, it has their brand, and the brand is the Kusturica films, and it's the other films, and it's very hard to get out of that.
It's actually quite a good point you made now, because it definitely links to where I wanted to go next with our discussion. So on a European level, especially, how do you think, Petro, that we can move from this minority cinema, so be that in an international festival and so on? You mentioned earlier that there's always a Roma corner, a Roma, stand, exactly. So how do you think we can move from being labeled as a minority cinema to just cinema of artistic excellence, for instance? Do you think it's gonna be hard to treat Roma filmmakers just as filmmakers without this concept of Roma labeled by default coming with it? So by your own experience, perhaps also from a filmmaker's point of view, as well as European institutional level, do you think there is space for this to kind of change in the next years, perhaps? Or how do you see this?
I'm thinking, to be honest. I'm questioning myself, because from your perspective of the question, I understood that the question is like, shall we move from this label of this is a Roma filmmaker? My question is returning, shall we? I mean, what is bad in it? Like, if someone represent me as a Ukrainian filmmaker, I don't have anything against that. So I don't have anything against that someone represent me and see as a Roma filmmaker, highlighting my identity, because identity it is important. It is important for me, so I don't see nothing bad in labeling. Of course, there is a double meaning might be comes with that. So it really depends. If bring my personal sample, now I'm serving as a board member of the European Film Academy, which fulfilling the chair for the national minority, the biggest national minority, which is Roma and Sinti. I see this as an honor. I don't see this as a label in a bad context. So, of course, could be always a bad context in that case. But it really depends what's the situation, how it's portrayed, and and proceed. So, I'm kind of don't have a clear answer on your question because it still could be both sides. For me, it seems nothing bad, but at the same time, it could be. Yeah.
I think perhaps why we tend to say that he's a Roma artist, filmmaker, musician, or whatever, is my loud thinking that perhaps we need to show our youth that we have successful people. Because in places or in Europe where Roma are one of the most vulnerable and the largest minority of Europe, facing so high unemployment rates and therefore no success, we need to say that, you know, we should mention that Sami is a Roma filmmaker to inspire the rest, that Petru is doing what he does, that I am doing what he does, hopefully that I can serve as an example to my kids and the rest. And it doesn't have to do with being nationalistic about it. It has to be about saying that you've gone through a lot as Roma, but it's okay to be a Roma. And as a Roma, you can still be a film director. I think it comes from that. But I loved your question because it has to do with why do we have to talk about that he's a Roma or she's a Roma? We don't. But I think it's good that the other Roma children can see examples. Because today, if you ask me how many Roma children can see professors in Kosovo, doctors, university, different occupations, and you will see there is barely any. You see them in politics, you see them in NGOs. Where do you see them else? And what can we promise them that once they graduate in their education, that they're going to achieve their dreams? So we need desperately examples to be able to say, a Roma artist, a Roma filmmaker.
Definitely, I mean, this concept can go both ways, exactly as you said. So while it's much needed to have proper representation of the community and success stories and people who have achieved, they're established and everything else, the idea behind it is, are we going towards a future that such people from marginalized communities, be that ethnic or different ones for different reasons, to be normalized as such, to achieve a position, to achieve a title, and so on, so that it wouldn't have to be specified additionally, let's say, but they would be valued specifically for the work they've done, be that artistically, be that in film, be that in any other type of... So I totally understand that we're just now at this point that representation has so much value, because we need all new generations to see that anything you want to achieve, it's doable, it's possible. Talking about the future, I have a question a last question to address to all of you before we open the stage for questions from the audience. If we're having the same discussion 10 years from now, what would you like to have changed in terms of Roma representation in Europe and in generally worldwide, from your own fields, from your own perspectives? If in 10 years from now, we're having the same discussion, what would you like to have changed in terms of Roma representation in Europe and in general worldwide? Like, how do you envision that?
I hope we will get to see much more films and much more days and much more, discussions around that. But, the world is changing all the time, and we are changing all the time, and we are also adapting to everything that is going on around us. And so I just hope that there's going to be so much more filmmakers, Roma filmmakers out there, and come to the cinema and talk about films and hopefully the themes and the discussions and the topics that we are going to talk about is going to be more diverse and different, and less of the some sort of things that are not necessary, like necessary in terms of respecting human being between the differences of the people, and more just embracing the differences basically, and how to live together.
In my opinion, if we go back 10 years, I wish I could say we have done a great job in terms of the progress. There is some progress, but it's more that I'm telling myself we're optimistic. We do have some progress, but not enough. Everyone else is much faster. But in 10 years, I hope that, Toby said something very beautifully yesterday. Toby, my new friend from UK, and he said that, simple, spread the message we are all human beings. And we truly are, and let's not wait for the aliens to come and realize that we are now human beings and they are the aliens. I loved what he said that. So, Amaro Tan is not just for Roma, it's for Roma and friends of Roma. It's a tool for Roma to get to know each other, connect each other. It's not to separate them, isolate them. It's there for them to support each other in their growth, but not to, separate them. So let's hope that in 10 years, because I mentioned it earlier, I will be seeing many more different professions surrounding me, of Roma people, of non-Roma people working together. And they're not saying so much that he's a Roma doctor, he's a Roma professor, but that's so normal now. But yeah, I'll stay optimistic that this is possible.
I have many thoughts regarding what's going to happen in 10 years. Let's say that with all this digitalization, the time is going much, much faster. So in 10 years, I would say that in 5 years already, it's going to be like a huge progress probably. So first, I don't want to have in 10 years those discussions about accessibility for the Roma people anymore. I believe that it's going to be gone, those discussions. I hope. Second, I want to see Oscar on the Roma movie. It's like, why not, right? Third, and probably the last one, okay. In 10 years, I'm just looking at all those young people. I'm not pretty sure regarding the numbers, but the statistics generally says that it's the youngest, we have the youngest population, right? There is like 5 young people to 1 old one. So it's like a huge potential next to us. It's right here. And in 10 years, all those people is gonna be probably employed somewhere, educated, hopefully, right? So I just, it's gonna be a big change in 10 years. It's difficult for me even to imagine, but Oscar should be for sure.
Thank you for answering, for taking the time to bring to the stage your expertise, your perspectives, and your backgrounds and all of the work that you've been doing for many years now.
So earlier in the conversation, Petro mentioned that there should be made some changes in the government and institutional level. I come from Bulgaria, where most of the Roma people are closed in communities, in their own communities, like ghettos and stuff like that. And the government is doing nothing about that. So my question to all of you, and especially in those communities, there are so many kids that they're very creative, they have vision, they have their own ideas. And what should we, all of us, do in order to go there to those communities and encourage this young generation to express themselves, to break free from the chains of that closure in the community and become successful eventually?
No, I think, and it should, the government just should do their job as simple as possible. And, I grew up in the Roma neighborhoods. I don't see that there actually was any bad of it. I preferred living and growing up there. But I could also imagine the ghetto, like completely separated neighborhoods and inaccessible with the transport or whatever. And but as long as people have access to normal living conditions, they will do whatever they can to get out of there, or getting out of these situations, defending themselves, getting out of the poverty, basically. So I don't think that it's us or the mainstream society that should think that, what are we gonna do, and these poor people. It's just provide equal opportunities for all of them. Let them have the jobs, let them have the education they deserve, instead of being closed-minded and decide the future for them at the early stage at schools and things like this. So, sometimes asking ourselves the questions, it's not what we can do. It's more of just let them do, basically.
If you're talking about the real structural changes, this is the long-term way. More Roma politicians who would push the government to do the structural changes. From institutions and activism, go to the community and work with the children, push their creativity, explain them that about the bravery. Just a simple example, I just mentioned about Oscar for the Roma people and blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, for many people it would be like, ha, Oscar. I was studying with the guy in the university who was saying me, it was like 10 years ago, let's say. And he was like also coming to me and saying like, one day I'm gonna be on the Oscar. And I was like, this guy is probably took too much vodka. This guy is nominated this year, was to the Oscar. And I was like, just be brave in your imagination and just do actions. Everything is possible in the end of the day. Yes, maybe more difficult for people who doesn't have enough access, but in the end, everything is possible. So there is a long-term answer and short-term answer. That's interesting that you're from Bulgaria because honestly, I never worked with the grassroots community, even though I mean, I've been in the community as many times with my family, etc., etc., but I never work with them. I was working with more higher institutions, so I doesn't have like a real experience how to do that. But interesting point, because Bulgaria is the strategic location for our organization, for ERIAC, since this year, and the purpose actually to reach the community and to work with them and to change the situation. So if you know how to do that, it would be really appreciated that you share.
I felt like I also needed to contribute here. It's very nice of you to think always. The question is very honest. What can we do with this mahala to get them out and make them feel good? And here's my mini answer. I'm sure you have friends that you can share this with, but I would like you to think about, to introduce the concept of that equality is not always fair. Being equal to everyone is not always fair. So it can apply to a class of second grade or third grade primary school, who maybe 10 children in the class simply just don't know multiplication table for whatever reason they have, because of their parents or the living conditions or whatever. So the teacher cannot continue with math with same way as with the rest of the children. So equitable approach here would be the teacher giving some more attention to these children that need it to be able to catch up with the rest, and then move on everyone. So I would say, introduce and speak to your friends and be as loud as you can with your friends that being equal is not always fair, because I know that you will also run into answers such as, what else can we do for them? They have the same as we have. We have buses, they have buses. We have social aid, they have social aid. We have employment calls for everyone. It's all equal. Like, well, what else can we do? Well, equality is not always the answer, and it's not always fair.
Okay. So, thank you so much for being here. Thank you, the audience, for actually coming to attend the panel, to ask questions, to raise, to just have some food for thought, at least, to doubt, to judge. So do please apply critical thinking to anything that you're doing, because we're here also to not just accept any reality we have. We're here to question stuff, we're here to break borders, we're here to break the rules. If you have a goal, if you have a dream, never stop pursuing it, because everything is possible. Definitely self-representations, as we all agree today, we've come to this agreement that it's not just about visibility, it's about having the power to imagine, to create, to follow your dreams, and as well as to share your own reality. The films that we've watched during Rolling Film Festival and we're gonna watch today, as well as the panelists that we've had the honor to have present throughout these two panel discussions for this edition of the festival, just remind us that culture is not only a reflection of society, but it's actually a tool to learn and to change it. With every movie, with every talk, with every meetup, encounter, we're opening a door to a new reality, to a new opinion, to a new thought, to a new argument. So go out there, use art, use culture, use any means you have to transform your reality and your life. And through cinema, through art, digital spaces, Roma communities nowadays, they're not waiting to be represented anymore. So they're actually being quite forward in actively shaping their own narratives and telling their own stories. Thank you so much for being here. I must apologize because we're running a little bit late with the program, but I hope for your understanding. We're gonna move on immediately with the screening of the shorts. Do approach and share a talk throughout the rest of the program. As I said, we will have a networking session from 9:30 p.m. as well as concert. So I hope you'll be able to attend the rest of the program today. Thank you, everyone.